Good morning. It is great to have you back today. And for those of you who are new, we welcome you to this executive director spot that we film generally on Thursday and comes out on Monday morning. So we welcome you to Back Bay Mission into my beautiful office here, which feels way too big for me. But I'm filling it up with stuff and with books. So today, since you're going to be seeing this the day after Easter, I want to relate some of my thoughts to kind of new life to Easter, but especially to what I would call liberation. I'm a huge proponent of what's called liberation theology, which comes from South America. It made its way through kind of black theologies in the black community, through the women's movement, through the queer movement. And liberation theology is really, I would say, the core and the foundation of the United Church of Christ in general. But I want to start out with a little bit of a story. A college student from the University of Alabama stopped by here yesterday. Her name is Kira, and I won't give you her last name, but she stopped by, and of course, strangely enough, which doesn't happen that often, there were very few staff that she could connect with. So somebody gave me her number, and she wanted to do a project. She's working on a project around homelessness, specifically in the city of Biloxi, not necessarily on the coast, but restricting it to really Biloxi. And so I called her back today, and she had called around trying to find statistics and trying to find somebody that knew something about homelessness. And of course, she started out with the mayor's office. She started out with the community foundation and several groups. And she said especially she got a very strange response from some of the kind of elected officials in the city. They're like, yeah, we have homelessness, but we don't really have any services. We don't know what people are doing for homelessness, which I think is strange because I think Back Bay has been out there and there's certainly a lot of groups. But I think they're referring to the fact that we don't really have a shelter, an overnight shelter on the coast here. But it kind of reminded me, as I was talking a bit with Kira, that so many issues have become political issues over the last few years. You know, I wear my Black Lives button every day because I believe all lives will not matter until Black Lives matter. And Black Lives Matter has become a political issue for many, politicized. Some of what's happening with the fear and anxiety and oppression of different Asian communities has become politicized. Transgender issues right now, especially around sports and women's sports or girls' sports in high schools, have become a really politicized matter. And for me, these are really not political matters, but they're matters of human rights and issues of human equity and human justice. So yesterday was what we call Trans Day or Transgender Day of Visibility, and I sent something out around to the staff, and some staff replied. I actually got a great whole packet of material that was sent by Everett here about how to celebrate transgender employees on Transgender Day of Visibility and year round. And I just thought about how, especially when it comes to girls' sports, this has become oftentimes politicized and really not a human rights issue that people can express themselves and live into their true and authentic selves as they desire. I had a conversation with one of our staff that works with our rehabs and our housing projects here, and she stated that it's really about being your authentic self, being your true self, being who you believe God has called you to be. And so when I think about Black Lives Matter, I think about the issues right now about the fear and anxiety that our Asian descent brothers and sisters are living in, Asian Americans. I think about trans folks. For me, it all comes down to really human rights. And it draws me back to the celebration we just had around Easter. Easter being a time of new life and resurrection, being a time where we look beyond death and we see that there is life beyond death for ourselves as we remember our loved ones. But I think also as we look at Jesus, that Jesus was in the middle of a incredibly oppressive culture at the time. Rome was inhabiting or oppressing his home country of Israel, the Jews. And so on that particular ride-in on Palm Sunday, which was a week ago when Jesus rode into Jerusalem, he rode into occupied Jerusalem, right, on a donkey, on this really incredibly humble animal. And there's this vision of Rome, the Roman government and Roman military riding in on military horses, right? On big stallions, because they're trying to control the people, especially because all of the Jews were coming back to Jerusalem to celebrate one of their high holy days, which would be the Passover, right? Which for us, as people of the Christian faith, we have taken and it's become Easter for us. But I think about that clash of conflict with Jesus, who was a peace-loving liberator who preached love and mercy and grace and freedom, in this clash with the oppressive regime of the Roman government. And of course, it looks like, because Jesus ended up dead and executed, it looks like, hey, the Romans won, right? But the surprise, of course, is that this message of peace and love and justice and liberation that Jesus proclaimed and taught continued to live on beyond his death. In fact, it became alive in the community, right? It became alive in a community that continued to live out these principles of justice and love and equity and mercy and peace and liberation. And so for me, I'd like you to really think about that today, to think about how often we've turned human rights into politicized, polarizing issues, when what it really should be an issue of love and justice and equity, and say, you're a part of the community and you have the freedom to be who you are, and live into your true, authentic self. And so that's really the message I want to bring to you today. Here at Back Bay Mission, I think it's pretty phenomenal that I have a staff that really values and upholds the dignity of each and every person. And in that understanding of liberation, really is trying to bring liberation to people experiencing homelessness, to people living in poverty, and helping them to live into their own liberation so they can be free from that stigma, free from poverty, free from homelessness, and have a shelter, that they have food on the table, that they know there's somebody who will assist them with their energy bills, with their rent, also with their mortgage. And so in many ways, we are an organization that kind of lives out Easter and resurrection and liberation in some really, really powerful ways for people. And the most beautiful thing for me, honestly, is the way that the staff here, they don't place judgments. They don't politicize anybody's issues. They don't politicize homelessness, which, by the way, is incredibly political issue right around the country and in our own community. But they just embrace people and accept people where they're at. And when somebody's ready to move into a home or somebody's ready to be housed, they're there to help. If they're not ready for that, again, there's no judgment and there's no accusations. And so I would really encourage you to just think about and dig deep into your heart and your spirit, especially as we're on the other side of this grand celebration of Easter, that you keep in mind the real truth of Easter, and that it's about individuals, someone like Jesus, but someone like you and me that bring this message of peace and mercy and liberation, and that we speak truth in the face of oppressive political powers, oppressive powers, people that would seek to oppress us and keep us from really expressing our true selves and our real voices. So I hope you had a tremendous Easter weekend. If you didn't celebrate Easter, maybe you celebrated Jewish holidays or Muslim holidays, or whatever holidays you celebrated this past weekend. Just remember that call to liberation and justice and equity and love and peace in the midst of challenges and difficulties. So hope to connect with you again next week. I'm hoping Kevin and I can hopefully get this out on the road. I know there's been some other filming done around Back Bay, especially with an individual who just actually is housed. And you'll get to watch that video and see the beauty of somebody from Back Bay Mission that is liberated into having a home and liberated from her place of poverty and unshelteredness. So thank you for joining me today. I hope you have an awesome day. It is incredibly windy here today, but the sun is shining and we're grateful for that. So peace to you.